Hi, thank you for joining me in this episode of GradSWE UCLA presents Women in Science, We Have the Power to Change the World. My name is Yifan Gao, a PhD candidate from Civil and Environmental Engineering Department at UCLA. I'm also the International Student Event Officer at GradSWE UCLA. GradSWE stands for the Graduate Student Community of Society of Women Engineers. Our goal is to provide support to graduate students and help them shine in their future career. We are going to host a series of interviews to female scientists, and we hope we can encourage more women to join the community of STEM. Our guest today is Professor Ashlynn Stillwell. She's an Associate Professor from Civil and Environmental Engineering Department from University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Her research areas are urban water and energy sustainability, electricity and water resources, green stormwater infrastructure, and energy, water, and carbon policy analysis. If you're interested in her group, feel free to check her website. Hi, Professor Stillwell. It's really nice to have you in my channel. And would you like to briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, thanks for the invitation to join you. This is really a great opportunity. My name is Ashlynn Stillwell. I am an associate professor in civil and environmental engineering at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. I'm coming up on 10 years at the University of Illinois, and I study water, energy, and policy. And we develop sustainable solutions in a policy-relevant context around those systems.
Wow, so may I use the word citizen scientist to describe you? Because your work focuses on building up a sustainable water infrastructure you just talked about, and also energy system that will benefit basically every household. So what inspired you to combine water and energy as your primary research focus?
That's a really great question. And the concept of a citizen scientist, I think, is really interesting. I'm glad to see that term catch on in the last several years, because I think that's a lot of what defines systems engineering is observing what happens around us as human beings and thinking about how those systems are designed and how we can do it better in the context of sustainability, resiliency, equity, inclusion, a whole bunch of aspects of what leads to an improved quality of life comes from observing things around us. And perhaps good or bad, when it comes to water and energy, a lot of times that infrastructure is hidden if we're not specifically looking for it.
Yes.
And so it takes having that perspective of what is around me and how do I get water that comes out of the tap, or how is water that goes down the drain appropriately treated, or how did the electricity turn the lights on? Where did that come from? Having that deeper level of curiosity about it, I think, is a big part of sustainability when it comes to these big systems. I got involved in water and energy really when I was an undergraduate. My background is in chemical engineering as an undergraduate, and I first got interested in water my freshman year of undergrad because my professor asked us what we thought the single greatest achievement of chemical engineering was. And the more I started reading about different types of breakthrough achievements, the thing that stood out to me was disinfection and water treatment.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's kind of what opened the door for me to be more interested in water. And a large aspect of water is also the energy associated with treating it. And then on the other side, the water for generating energy, either through primary fuels or secondary fuels like electricity. And so I worked in power plants when I graduated from undergrad before I went to graduate school, and started to pull these things together with an interest in big systems, specifically water and energy.
So like I assume your answer for your chemical engineering class is disinfection
Yes,
and
yes.
water treatment. Oh, that got you interested in the water infrastructure. And you are totally right. So all the tubes, like all the water infrastructure system, they were hidden in the wall inside of the system. Like basically you're totally right. It's really hard to actually find those water system and power system.
So like getting the concept of this, what is sustainable water and where those tap water can coming from is really important. Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. So talk about the energy. So I'm not sure if you know, in California, the government announced that in 2035, all new cars sold in California has to be zero emission vehicles, including hybrid cars. It seems like the new energy is booming, but I'm not sure if you actually achieve that, like 100% of all zero emission cars. So can you share your thoughts on the current state of sustainable energy and this policy or this kind of policy that are in place of like supports the clean energy growth?
Yeah, it is an exciting time to be in the
Yeah.
energy sector for sure. The energy sector is changing rapidly, and
Yeah.
just in the time that I've been working in the energy sector, things have really transformed. When I was working in power plants, I was working on coal-fired power plants in my
Oh,
lifetime, building new coal-fired power
yeah.
plants, and we're not doing that anymore. We're not building new coal plants for the most part. We are building smaller distributed energy systems. We are building natural gas facilities, and we're moving away from coal. And that's
Mhm.
exciting that to see in a relatively short amount of time, in less than 20 years, we are starting to transform the energy sector. Do I think we'll get to those goals? I don't think it actually matters. Maybe this is a controversial hot take.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it really matters if we do or do not achieve net zero emissions.
Oh, yeah.
Point is that we have made those decisions and prioritized that as
Oh, yeah.
goals. And by setting those goals, we work toward them and we make decisions around passenger vehicles,
True.
for example, in moving ourselves toward that goal. Whether we achieve it or not is not nearly as important in my mind as moving toward that goal. Because if we don't
Oh,
set the goal, we're not
yeah.
going to get there. And we're not going to make
Yeah.
those investments absent that policy action. And so that's something that is interesting to follow from the energy sector perspective is what goals we do and don't set compared to what actions we do and don't take toward those goals.
So you mean like whether getting the net zero emission is not as important, not as important as the progress, or the progress is more important than the final goal?
I
Sort of.
think I think progress in beneficial progress in any
Yeah.
capacity is
Yeah.
extremely important. The definition of what exactly is net zero and
Yeah.
where do you draw the control boundary as to what the emissions are and
Yeah.
how do we account for those? I think those are important considerations and we shouldn't neglect those at all,
Yeah.
but that shouldn't hold us up in
Oh,
taking
yeah.
beneficial steps toward a better future.
Yeah, that's true. I now I understand this. Even if we cannot get 100%, but we have to take action towards it. That beneficial action will actually made us to achieve, for example, 90% of zero emission and 90% of hybrid or
Right.
clean energy. Right.
Which
Yeah.
would still be great progress, right?
Yeah,
Even
that's true.
if we got 80%, that's greater than 0.
Yeah, that's true. Also, like clean energy. So, what type of energy are clean energy? Is it just electricity, or there's like any other type of clean energy that we can use in our daily life?
This is an excellent question that comes up a lot in the energy sector,
Yeah.
and there's a very robust discussion on energy Twitter about
Oh,
this
yeah.
exact thing of, for example, what fuels should we be using to make hydrogen? What
Oh,
is
yeah.
green hydrogen? What is blue hydrogen? All of these different colors. I think the context is very important. I'm here in Illinois, and
Yeah.
a large amount of our electricity generation in Illinois comes from nuclear power, for example.
Oh, yeah.
And is nuclear renewable? No.
Hmm.
Is nuclear zero carbon from an operational perspective? Yes. But nuclear is not an appropriate solution everywhere.
Oh,
And
got it.
so context very much matters. Nuclear power plants require a lot of water for cooling, and so they need to be in places that have drought contingency plans and a robust response to heat waves, for example. And that is not appropriate in some locations. And in those locations, perhaps we redesign some of the systems to make them appropriate operationally for that context. So what is clean energy? There's both the immediate answer of carbon dioxide emissions, but those carbon dioxide emissions come from both operations and supply chains.
Yeah.
And then there's the broader context, because when we focus just on carbon emissions, sometimes we miss some of the broader context around water and other considerations.
Got it. So, for example, like biodiesel or biofuel, they are considered as clean energy. But if we are not building a really good supply chain, probably the carbon emission is not zero. Or
Correct.
yeah,
The context around biofuels is really, really important, because it doesn't stop only at the internal combustion engine that is burning those biofuels. The supply chain to get to that point is really, really important. And depending on how we do those biofuels, the cultivation of feedstocks and the management of agriculture can undermine a lot of those carbon goals that we have when it comes to biofuels, because of things like land use change and soil carbon management and nutrient pollution and runoff. We can end up undermining our sustainability goals by deteriorating water supplies and water quality, all in a hyper focus on biofuels.
I got it. So it's really complex, like a really complex answer, really complex question for what is clean energy and what we're gonna reach to that goal. So
a lot easier to answer what is dirty energy.
What is dirty energy, like coal, they're like, yeah.
Right.
So I think you just gave me a really great lecture and answer my question, because I'm not in engineering sector. I'm pretty totally new in this area. So that's why I want to ask you, because you just gave me a really really good lecture on that, and I totally understand what you said. So I'm really interested in your contribution to the scientific communication, for example, the Girl Scout. So yeah, I think it's a really creative way, helping Girl Scout think like citizen scientists. So I really wish I had a chance to be a Girl Scout, to learn science and engineering when I was a kid. I love Girl Scout cookies. It's not related to this conversation. Yeah, so what would you like to share some interesting stories with us? Like, what motivated you to get involved with promoting scientific concepts and education among young girls?
That's a really great question. And a lot of the outreach that my research group and I do is through Girl Scouts, because of what Girl Scouts did for me as a youth, and the opportunity to introduce girls to STEM careers by being a role model. There's so much research out there on stereotypes when it comes to women in STEM fields, and seeing a realistic role model is something that can break down some of those stereotypes. And that is something straightforward that I can do as just one person. How do we change the world? It's hard to do that as just one person. But to be one person that interacts with other people can really make a difference in those lives. And the reason I focus on Girl Scouts is because that is something I did as a youth. I was in Girl Scouts for 10 years as a girl. I earned the Girl Scout Gold Award, which is the highest award in Girl Scouting. And it really, for lack of a better term, changed my life, because when I was younger, I used to be terrified of public speaking. I would get so nervous that I would almost throw up every time I would give any sort of speech or just speak up in front of a crowd. And Girl Scouts taught me public speaking, and also taught me how to do that in a safe space, because public speaking and engaging with the public is a skill, not a talent. And it's something that you learn by doing.
Yes.
And I learned that through Girl Scouts. And now I'm a professor at one of the top programs in the country in civil and environmental engineering, which is weird to think about how I used to be terrified of standing in front of a group and talking.
Oh, yeah,
So
because right now
really
you have to teach.
exactly, exactly. And so I feel like I owe a lot to Girl Scouts in that development of me as a youth. And a way that I can give back is through these different channels. And so we host Girl Scouts for an event at the power plant here on the University of Illinois campus. We teach them about electricity, we take them through the plant, and they get to see what it's like to be in STEM fields around energy and also water systems. The last part that I'll toss in here, you mentioned that you wish you had the opportunity to be a Girl
Yeah.
Scout as a girl. It's never too late. You can
Oh,
always join Girl Scouts as an adult, and Girl Scouts is always looking for volunteers and subject matter experts, especially around STEM. This is
oh,
a push that Girl Scouts as a national organization has really put forward, recognizing that what we're doing is training girls of the future. And traditionally, we think about Girl Scouts from the perspective of cookies, crafts, and camping, like
oh, yeah.
the traditional C's. But really, what we're focusing on is building girls of courage, confidence, and character,
Oh,
life skills around transforming the
mm,
world from the perspective of being a girl that grows to be a woman who makes change. There's lots of opportunities, even as an adult, to get involved.
yeah. It seems like I have a stereotype of Girl Scout because it's totally new to my culture. What? Yeah, you're right. I thought it's Girl Scout is more like camping, getting like living skills, in the forest
Right.
or so. But right
And we
now
still
it's
do that, right?
we
Outdoor
still
education is
oh
a big part of it, but there's so much more that we lean into now in
oh
a
it's
modern context.
wow. So I'm gonna definitely check that. It depends on whether I will get a lot of great cookies, but it's different. Yeah.
But
So yeah,
cookies are an excellent example where
yeah,
that is the largest girl-run
yeah,
business in the
yeah. That's
world,
true. Yeah, yeah. I
and
know
they are
that. Yeah.
learning goal setting and financial literacy and how to conduct themselves with confidence such
Yes.
that it's not just a fundraiser and I'll go buy some cookies. There's a lot
Yeah.
of life-changing things that are happening for those girls selling you the cookies.
Yeah, that's true. It's really it's such a coincidence. Is when I first came to US and then I went to UC Berkeley. I went to the North Gate, like our North Gate, and then there's like two girls selling uh Girl Scout cookies, and their dads were around with them and taught them how to do public speaking and sell them and encourage them to talk to that lady if you wanna sell the cookies. And then I stopped. I said, "Oh, you can sell me that," and they basically introduced all the cookies to me, and I bought like 3 boxes. So that, yeah, I think it's a really great experience with all the young girls because they will train them like how to do public speaking and confident to talk to strangers and sell them. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So talking about the Girl Scouts, I have a few questions for our organization, GradSWE. So we are like women engineers. So I want to ask you, like, as a female scientist, what challenges have you met in the way that you made big decisions in your life? For example, changing from chemical engineering to civil engineering and like all the big decisions.
Being a woman in engineering we are still minorities,
Yeah.
and we've not yet reached gender parity in engineering as a sector and even in engineering education in preparing students for the engineering field. But we're making progress. So what that really translates to is that there are challenges, and the best thing we can do as women is go into facing those challenges with eyes wide open, I think. And that comes from different expectations that we have for ourselves and expectations that society has of us. There's a lot of perspective, I think, that we bring as women in trying to do it all, from that lean in perspective of leaning into our identity as women, leaning into our careers as engineers, leaning into our families as a caregiving role and a family leading role,
Yeah.
there's so very much that society kind of pulls at us,
Oh yeah.
such that we are expected to be the driven, successful career woman and also
Mhm.
the
Successful.
the
Yeah.
caregiving mother
Caregiving. Yeah.
wife role, and that sometimes that's pulling and stretching our
Yeah.
ability, and so a lot of those challenges come from expectations we have of ourselves, expectations that society has of us, and really in the end you have to make the decision that's right for you. And
Yeah.
for some women, that looks different than other decisions that other women make. And the very best thing I think we can do as women is support other women
Yeah.
and to be honest and forthcoming with what it's like to be a woman in a male dominated field and to break open those doors sometimes and make sure that they stay open after we get through the door. Keep it propped open for everyone behind us, because it might have been hard to work our way up, but that doesn't mean it has to be hard for everyone behind us.
Yeah, we can share our experience and our advice with all the young girls or all the like
Absolutely.
yeah. So that's one of my purposes to make these YouTube videos is wanna like every audience like open like every professor's suggestions and advice to every audience around the world.
Well, and I think for women who are entering
Mm.
the field of engineering, whether it's academia or industry or business,
Yeah,
government, any aspect of STEM in the workforce, there are often lots of women who are very willing to share our perspectives. And we
yes,
might not have a shingle hung out on the door that says, "Come and talk to me if you need advice," because we're all kind of stretched thin, but
yeah,
at the same time we've had this perspective and we're always happy to share ours for the most part. So that's one of the things I really love about the Twitter community and
yeah,
kind of
that's true.
having this engagement around academia and STEM and women, and there's a large community of moms in academia that
Yeah,
that just share perspective, and sometimes it just takes that one person that says, "I see you. It's so hard right now, but it will get better. I want to
yeah.
see you succeed."
Yeah, I think it's a really great idea, especially the mom in academia, because my mom is also the mom in academia. But at that time, she didn't have like a platform to communicate with other moms in academia. They just probably have a small group and they chat, but their experience they cannot share with other like new moms and moms in academia. So I really like the idea, like the Twitter platform. That's why I really love it. Yeah. Also, the role model you when we were talking about the Girls Club, you wanted to like making all the girls to see the real role model. So I want to ask, do you have any role model that you look up to as you were pursuing your career?
The best role model I had was my mom. And my
Mm.
mom was not an engineer. My mom was a public school teacher, and she was a high school business teacher. She was very driven, and she did her best to truly do it all. She was always there for me and supportive of me. And she was also extremely good at what she did professionally. She was among the best business teachers in Missouri when I was growing up. She was named one of those top business educators in the state, and I I knew that she was wonderful as a teacher, and she was always present as a mom, which
Wow.
made all the difference. And now that I too am a parent and a career woman, and it's really hard to do all of those mom things
Yeah.
and all of those career things, and it often means that we have to decide what doesn't get done. And
Yeah.
the best example I have ever heard is an analogy of juggling. And we're all
Oh
juggling
yeah.
things. And my
Yeah.
mom was excellent at juggling different responsibilities and different tasks. And it's not that we are perfect. we are going to miss and we're going to drop something. And we have to decide which of the balls that we are juggling is made of glass and which is made of plastic, because the plastic ones can fall and they might make a really loud noise, but they won't break. And it's okay to drop the ball sometimes. But some of those other things that are glass, we just can't drop that. And recognizing that is that survival tactic. And my mom was fantastic at that.
Oh, really like the analogy of the juggling. I never thought about that way because you are right. Some of them are plastic, some of them are glass. Like a glass one, for example, your mom always presents, as a mom. So with like the education, the childhood education is really important, and she treated as the glass juggling, and then and she kind of like probably gave up something as a plastic, and then but it's fine. It's like perfect balance. Well, I really like an analogy. So it comes to our last question. So do you have any advice that you would like to give women that are currently or thinking about pursuing STEM field?
For women that are thinking about or currently pursuing STEM fields, I think the best thing is to figure out what drives you and to go with that and to follow that. It takes a lot of courage to do that, to recognize where passions lie. And when it's time to make a career move, make a career move. And it can be scary, and it's okay to be scared. And it's also okay to feel like you don't necessarily know what you're doing. That concept of imposter syndrome, where we feel like we're not good enough, is really prevalent among women. And sometimes you just have to take a deep breath and do things that scare you, and go and be the most authentic you that you can be. It's a tough world out there, but we can make a difference in it by little steps forward.
Baby step forwards. Yeah. I believe like every girl, they should have the courage to join the community of STEM as long as they are like interested in it. So just follow your heart. Thank you so much for all the amazing stories and experience and advice. I hope like all my audience can enjoy this talk. And thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. This was lovely.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me for today's episode of Women in Science. We have the power to change the world. Please hit the subscribe button and follow us to hear more stories from female scientists.